All right, so with the basketball season in full swing now, you kind of get a look at what teams you are expecting, to be going far this season. There are a couple of teams that you're, kind of surprised about. Like I'm pretty surprised about the Nets right now, 3-4, holding the 10 seed right now. But the Celtics, they're blowing away everyone. The Bucks right there, tied for first. The Heat, I'm very surprised about in third place in the Eastern Conference. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to consider the fact that they have now two potential Rookie of the Year candidates in Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn. I feel like Tyler
and Jimmy
Hero.
Butler.
Yeah, they still have Jimmy Butler too, and I feel like Tyler Hero, like people knew he was gonna be good, but I think he's surpassed expectations a little bit. And then Kendrick Nunn has kind of just come out of nowhere and just, I mean,
he's putting up numbers like no person or no player in his position has. If you know where I'm coming from.
Well, yeah, for this draft class coming from like basically out of nowhere, I see where you're coming from, and yeah, as you said, I mean the Bucks, as expected at the top, Sixers are doing pretty well. The Celtics, I think I'm actually surprised by how well they're doing. I expected them to be good, but I didn't expect them to be this good. Kemba's been on a tear as well.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely filled that role for the Celtics, and Hayward is back.
Yeah.
To exactly what he used to be.
Yeah.
And they're just gelling. Tatum is helping them out too. Yeah. They're just gelling.
The Raptors go on.
Yeah, actually the Raptors are not doing too bad. And I'm very surprised about that because they lost a very big piece over the offseason in Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, but also I feel like they have Kawhi and Siakam, so that I mean it doesn't really surprise me too much that they're in the middle of the conference.
Yeah, I was expecting that too. But they do have that 5-2 record, and they're tied with 3 teams.
Yeah.
With the Heat and the Sixers.
Yeah. So do you want to move over to the Western Conference?
Yeah, and what I'm not surprised about in the number 1 seed, the Lakers, who are, by the way, on a 6-game winning streak right now, 6-1, 3-0 at home, 3-1 away. They are just blowing everyone away. They came back the other day against the Bulls from nowhere, and they have so much depth in every single position. It's unbelievable. And Howard is performing to a high standard.
Yeah, he's not where, obviously prime Dwight Howard was, but he's better than we thought he would be. I think they got things figured out after that first game against the Clippers, where they had the lead at the beginning, and then, led by Kawhi, obviously, the Clippers started to mount a comeback and eventually pulled out the dub. I think they figured things out, they got their chemistry going, and they haven't lost a game since.
Yeah, 6-game winning streak.
Yeah, also, Luka Doncic, we have to mention him, because he...
Oh, yeah, he has been absolutely carrying that Mavericks team. And by the way, I am very surprised at where they are right now. I was not expecting them to be in the 2nd seed right behind that Lakers team.
They also have Porzingis, though.
Yeah, and he's been getting a lot better. He's been putting on some muscle, and he's improved tremendously. And that team is just gelling really well right now.
Yeah, at this rate, I think Luka Doncic is a potential MVP candidate. Not only that, but he's probably a top 3 most valuable trade asset. Like if somebody were to trade him, he probably has the most one of the highest values in all of the NBA. I'm not saying they would trade him, but
I was about to put a finger on that.
Yeah, I'm not saying they would trade him, but if you compare values of players, he is very much up there. Yeah.
And I understand that the Clippers, who are by the way now sitting at the 7th seed, 5-3.
I think it's the 5th seed. Oh well, they're in a huge tie. They're in a huge tie.
Yeah, with the Rock. Anyway, I'm not surprised that they're down there, and it's because they have to rest Kawhi Leonard with his, injury-prone, self, and, he needs some rest after that huge finals and playoff run. And, he has been hurting, but they're just resting for the playoffs. And when Paul George comes back, that team is going to start hopping over the teams in front of them, and they're going to be up at the top.
Yeah, I think Paul George is definitely going to help when he comes back, but that also brings us to the topic of load management, which has been gaining some steam in the past couple of days because of this whole Kawhi thing. The Hornets we just found out earlier that Michael Jordan, actually, we all know he owns the Hornets. He told his players, "You're getting paid to play 82 games." So we also had the UNC coach come out and say he doesn't believe in load management. So, I mean, obviously, us from the outside looking in, we don't know what the situation with Kawhi is, but if they're really just resting him for the sake of resting him, just to keep him, not fatigued.
Well,
he
has been complaining, not necessarily complaining, but he has been saying that he's not feeling 100%, and they don't want to take a chance with a player like that.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, because we don't exactly know, and fans are paying good money to see the Clippers play, and without Paul George and without Kawhi, some of them may essentially feel like
last year, pretty much,
and they may essentially feel like they wasted their money. Like, it's the same thing with.
And you know what that actually jumps is when you're on the big screen and you're on national television. And not saying just those typical games, but when you're really like the other day when Kawhi Leonard didn't play, and they had the game on the NBA channel on ESPN or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and he didn't play. When that happens, then you can make an argument. If you're just resting him for the games that not everyone can watch, it's understandable. But
you also have to consider the fans that buy tickets.
You got to play them.
Yeah, but there's also the fans that buy tickets, because even if it's not on national TV, fans are paying to watch Kawhi and Paul George. Obviously, Paul George is injured, and you can't do anything about that. But again, we don't know.
They don't want that to happen to Kawhi. I can completely understand it. The only thing that I don't understand is why would you rest him or why would you sit him when you're on, the big, market like that? Why would you rest him when you have all that publicity?
I mean, I don't think the Clippers care as much as the NBA would about that, because the Clippers, I mean,
they're still getting the money, but they're going to start, losing that screen time.
Yeah, the NBA is going to start losing that revenue. Also, the Phoenix Suns are very high up, which is pretty surprising considering
5-2.
DeAndre Ayton's out, so Devin Booker has really had to step up. And, I mean, in the past few years, the Suns have always been that team where they were expecting...
They've been close to contending, but not quite yet.
Yeah, well, not contending, but close to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, you expected them to be decent with all these, draft picks they've accumulated over time. But they never really started to show up until now. And also, I mean, now I feel like I'm starting to ask the question of, is DeAndre Ayton really a valuable asset? Because last year, I mean, they had Ayton and they weren't playing as well. So, I mean, I don't really know, because we haven't really seen him play with the Suns in the regular season so far much. But, I mean, do they, give him a shot? Do they trade him if he doesn't work out when he comes back?
I don't know. I mean, he hasn't been given much of a shot, in my opinion, and this is only his sophomore season.
That's true.
And he hasn't even been given the full opportunity this season. Yes, I understand that his trade value would be high, but the Suns are contending at this moment. If they begin to fall and they begin to tank, then you can put it up to debate to trade him. But right now, you got to keep him. You got to hope that he stays healthy, comes back from this injury, and the Suns, go somewhere. They haven't gone anywhere in forever, so the fan base would, love to see them go somewhere.
Yeah, the Utah Jazz are doing pretty good as well. The Rockets, I mean, I expected them to be a little better, but they can still bounce back.
I'm sorry, any Rockets fans, they are just impossible to watch. They are so horrendous. It's just Westbrook and Harden attempting to get triple doubles, and they're not playing for the win. It's just shot after shot after shot. Both of their field goal percentages are absolutely horrendous. And Russ, by the way, has been horrible this season.
Do you have the stats, or should I pull it up?
Yeah, go ahead and pull it up.
In the meantime, though, the Blazers also with Dame and CJ, they've kind of been underwhelming. Because Damian Lillard, you would expect him by now, like, well, not, oh, I should say by now, but this season, I would have thought that he would have been about, like, around the MVP discussion, but he's not really there right now.
All right.
We haven't really been hearing too much of them either in the news.
Yeah.
Like in the sports news, so.
All right. So, by the way, I understand that Russ was an all-star last year, but he came off of one of the worst shooting, seasons of his career. And although he's averaging this year 20.7 points, look at his field goal percentage. It is just not. It's just not good.
I mean, 45 point. Are you talking about his 3-point percentage?
I mean, you can count that too, but yeah.
Yeah, because it's 25% right now, which looks like the lowest since 2010.
Exactly. He's putting up worse numbers than he has in a very long time.
You would think that with Harden, and guys like Eric Gordon and stuff, the floor would be spaced so that he would get more open shots. But I mean, this is not.
Just hasn't happened.
I mean, his overall field goal percentage is okay, I guess. His 2-point percentage is actually the highest, looks like, of his entire career. But that 3-point percentage, it looks like, is really dragging it down.
His free throw is not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, actually...
It's a little bit on the lower side of him with 6.28.
No, it's the lowest it's ever been.
Horrendous, yeah. That is the worst of his career.
Yeah, I think you're looking like at the 80%, right? Or were you just...
No. His free throw percentage is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. His free throw, it's just bad.
I feel like they just need time to mesh. His
3-point percentage wouldn't even be considered a good batting average in baseball. That's how horrendous it is. And baseball is a failing sport. This is just awful. It's 258.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't get much worse than that. I mean, his 3-point percentage has never been, outstanding, lingering around the 300 mark. But this is just horrible.
Yeah, but I feel like if there's one coach that you can trust to make something like this work, is Mike D'Antoni. Because he made James Harden and Chris Paul work. I mean, they didn't get to the finals, but he made it work.
Yes, but Chris Paul wasn't fighting for a triple-double each night. This is the game of Russell Westbrook. All he does is go for triple-doubles. Same with Harden. Maybe not to the same extent as Russ, but they both only go for that triple-double, and that's going to impair the amount of wins that they're going to get. And I don't know if that's coachable. Maybe it is, but he's been doing it for a few years now since Katie left, and I don't know if he can break that habit. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't think Harden really chases triple-doubles. Russ definitely has before, but I think he's doing a little better not chasing triple-doubles this year. And it's funny because now we're looking for him to lower his rebounds and assist numbers, but it looks like he is a little better than the previous couple seasons. But
he also has to remember that he's not alone.
Yeah,
he has Harden, he has Gordon. So I understand that he had Paul George when he was on the Thunder, but that was it. And I mean, yes, Steven Adams, but he was there for boards and assists mainly. So he had an easy area for triple doubles when he was on there. But now he doesn't. And this Rockets team is trying to go all the way.
Yeah.
And he has to realize that and step up.
It looks like he's a little better, but I feel like if they really want to succeed, they're gonna have to not chase stats. Again,
here's what I have to say. There's only been 7 games that he's played this season. There's plenty more to go 82 total, and he has plenty of time to make it up. And I guess he's got to do it soon. But
yeah, I think he will. I think he will because I think at this stage in his career he wants that championship. So does James Harden. They're on a roster that has the potential to be. If they make it to the NBA Finals, they have a pretty decent shot at winning. Like, it's just the problem. Can they get past the Lakers and the Clippers? Like, and I feel like, I mean,
I honestly, I can see the Clippers, and I'm not saying that they're a weak team at all because they're not.
Yeah.
But Paul George is not used to, and don't get me wrong, he is not used to going that deep in the playoffs. Yes, he did when he was on the Pacers, but not recently. He has pretty much only made it to the first round and gotten pretty much creamed each time with the Thunder. And even with the Pacers when he was in his last season with them. So,
yeah. I mean, he hasn't really been that far since like 2013.
Yeah, he also is in a big city. He's not in Indiana anymore. He's not in Oklahoma City anymore. He's in L.A., and he's got to perform to the standards of the fans, and he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Kawhi is used to it. He was just in Toronto. He just won the championship. He carried that team to the first finals appearance ever and then finals championship ever. And he knows how to set the stage. He won it with San Antonio a few times. He even won finals MVP when, he was relatively irrelevant as a player.
And don't forget, we don't know, but if he didn't get hurt in 2017, I'm not saying he would have. It would have been very tough. But let's not forget, they were up by 30 on the Warriors with KD.
Yeah. And then, that dirty play by Patch costed them.
Yeah, and speaking of the Warriors, I feel... I mean, I don't even know whether to feel bad for the fans, but just injuries...
You can't really... I mean, right now, it's the Warriors, this moment, are like the Yankees of baseball usually are. And what I mean by that is they've been in it every single year, whether they win it or not, which they, by the way, have been winning quite often in the finals. So for them to have an off year would not be the end of the world. Yes, the fans are used to the winning, but it won't kill anyone.
Yeah, but
this
also
is just a minor setback. I believe that if they rest everyone, keep everyone healthy, they could potentially make a run for it this year, but they will have a real shot at winning it next year again.
But they're gonna have to improve their roster because that roster that won the championship in 2015, that team had Sean Livingston, Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, Andrew Bogut, Festus Ezeli. They lost it all. I mean, they moved on without that kind of depth, but they still
got some of that. I understand that they have a lot of injuries right now, but they still have Clay. I understand that he's injured. They still have Draymond Green. They still have Curry. I know that he's injured.
D'Lo.
Yeah, they have they have depth.
Yeah.
I understand that it's not what it used to be, but once their players are healthy, they have a real shot at making a push. I'm not saying that they're going to go that far, but I believe that they can make the playoffs this season.
I mean, I don't think they have much depth because of the injuries and because all of a sudden the KD leaving shock factor. But I think that they can.
The KD leaving, everyone kind of saw coming.
Yeah, if they make some solid moves this offseason, they could definitely be a contender again next year. But I mean, can they make the right decisions this offseason? And that's up to Bob Myers, the GM.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about...
He's made some good moves in the past. Don't get me wrong. He got that KD signing.
Yep.
He brought all these players together. He got the center. He's now on the Lakers, but he's injured. DeMarcus Cousins for very, very, very cheap. $5 million. Yeah. He's had some great moves. And I understand it isn't looking too great for the Warriors right now, but I'm not saying I believe that they can, make the 8 or 7 seed this season once their players come back, because they will have them, but it will be towards the end of the season, and it will take some time for them to jump over those teams. But I believe that they can do that.
So basically, recently, I think it was yesterday or today, Des Bryant said he wants to come back to football, which is pretty interesting because, I mean, he used to be a top player. Nobody knows if he can return to that, but whichever team he goes to, could be getting a huge boost from him.
He could contribute greatly. He could add a little bit of depth, even though he's definitely not going to be the same player. And I see him, going to a contending team because they need him, they want him.
Yeah.
I don't see a team like the Jets or the Dolphins picking him up. By the way, I cannot believe the Jets. They lost to the Dolphins, and it wasn't even close. It was more than a touchdown, and they beat the Cowboys somehow, but lose to the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, it was also scary because I was paying attention to that game because I think the Saints defense. I decided I think they had a bye, or I decided not to put them in. And my fantasy team, I had the Jets because I was thinking they're gonna do fine against the Dolphins, and they barely even get positive points, which was like
they have beyond bad coaching. If you watch them, it's just on offense penalty after penalty after penalty, holding on defense pass interference. Roughing everyone gets roughing the passer, but it's just terrible coaching, and it's year after year after year. It was last year too.
Yeah, now fans want Adam Gase fired.
Yeah, and they need to figure it out. They need to turn it around. I have to say they don't have that bad of a roster. They don't. I would say that they could possibly, without the injury of Darnold this year, I would say that they would be about a 500 club, around 8-8. But with the horrible management and the horrible playmaking with all the penalties, it's just you can't win.
Yeah, but a team that does have it figured out this season is the 49ers. They're still undefeated somehow.
I don't understand. They are the most improved team. They went from nothing last year to something this year. And I want to go back to the Jets for just a second. They have Bell, and they never he got 10 touches the other game against the Dolphins. He got 10 touches.
Yeah, and
when you have a player like that, you got to just give it to him when you need that rush.
Yeah, and
I don't know what's going on there. When you have that player, you have to utilize him. They don't utilize him.
Yeah, I think he got upset over it, and rightfully so. The passing game obviously hasn't been working, so he's probably he's the only other option, really, other than passing.
Especially since you can tell, visibly that Darnell is not 100%, back.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing ghosts.
They still won't use Bell. The Giants, when Saquon was... Actually, he's back now. But, when Saquon is on that field, they utilize him. They give him the ball. I understand that they're not winning. They are winning a little bit more than Jets, but I understand that they're not winning. But they get some positive things out of their young star.
Yeah.
The Jets have not utilized him whatsoever. 10 touches is inexcusable for a player like him. One of the best, if not the best in the league right now.
Yeah. I feel like the Rams have been pretty disappointing considering they made the Super Bowl last year and they're only 5-3. You expect them to be like a top Super Bowl contender for the Super Bowl this year, but they might not even make the playoffs.
They do have time. I understand that the clock is winding down in terms of games since there's only 16, and every loss really counts. But they still have a shot to turn it around. Yeah, you know what really surprises me is the Chargers. They are beyond awful this year. I understand that they lost a few players, but to have a very, very good season and a potential Super Bowl berth to being one of the worst teams in the league just amazes me. I can't.
Yeah, I can't explain that either. Honestly, the NFC East has been so bad this season. The Cowboys and the Eagles, they're 5-3 and 5-4, but both have a solid shot in getting into the playoffs because their division is so bad.
I can't believe that the Cowboys are still at the top of the division when they lost to the Jets. Like when you lose to the Jets, you just don't even deserve to make the playoffs. I'm sorry.
I mean, the Cowboys and the Eagles, they both have solid rosters, so it's surprising to see that they're barely above 500.
Yeah. You know what I've noticed around football is the NFC East is in very, very, very strong. And then you get not the NFC East, just the NFC in general, all divisions, then you get to the East, and you have 5-3 as your top record. You look at the NFC West, you got the 49ers in first place, 8-0. Second place is the Seahawks,
probably a wild card.
Yeah, and Rams, who would, by the way, be in, division contention in the East, are 5-3, and probably, with that situation, aren't going to make the playoffs. And then you got the Vikings who are in it, the Panthers who are in it.
Yeah, CMC is potentially an MVP candidate.
Yeah, the Packers and the Saints are doing phenomenally. The Rams, they have a shot to turn it around. I can see it happening. They did come off 2 straight wins, so they are heading in the right direction.
But also that Todd Gurley injury is gonna. Well, he's not injured right now, but like his health,
his health problems, yeah,
his health records, that's gonna cause a problem because if he was 100% healthy, he is the best running back in the NFL. I mean, well, CMC has really risen up this year, but I mean, if we're not talking CMC, because I'm not really so sure about that. Todd Gurley, I feel like, is definitely the best running back in the NFL. And honestly, the Seahawks with Russell Wilson, that's another potential MVP candidate. Tyler Lockett's been playing well. He's been basically doing everything you can ask for from a QB. So I feel like, honestly...
their defense got to step up.
Yeah, I mean, their defense, it's been good, but if they can step up, I mean, then they have a shot at making it back to the Super Bowl.
They're still a decent team. 5-3 is not a bad record.
No, they're 7-2.
The Seahawks, are we talking about?
Yeah, the Seahawks.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, you thought we were talking about the Rams?
I'm good. All right. So, I don't know how much. I understand the 49ers are 8-0. Yeah. They're having a phenomenal, historic type season. The Seahawks would be number one in most divisions. They'd be number one in the NFC North, the East, of course. But, they just have that one stump in the 49ers, who you can't really top once, when you're having a season like that.
Yeah, and two teams that I think have really, really disappointed this year are the Bears and the Falcons. Both teams have solid rosters because the Bears have what they have Khalil Mack. Hold on. We thought Mitchell Trubisky might be okay at the beginning of the season, but looks like that's not the case.
Yeah, and they have been horrendous so far.
And the Falcons, I really don't know what they've been doing. They have Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman. This team is this.
It's great on paper, terrible on the field. They just don't gel well.
Yeah, I feel like also the coaching could be a problem here because some of their players, like in the past, they were good, but now like all of a sudden they're not as good with the Falcons. So I feel like they might need to switch up their coaching staff or just give the coaches some kind of incentive to do better.
I don't know
They
if it's
don't
the same
already
story.
have enough incentives.
I don't know if it's the same stories with the Jets. Whether or not they have all these awful unnecessary penalties every 5 minutes. I have not been watching that closely with the Falcons, but I do know that they just their team has not been gelling well together. I think that they need addition by subtraction, which means they got to get rid of one of their players, one of the supposedly star players, and maybe that'll help them gel. I don't know. Maybe the coaching staff is what they need, but they got to figure out something. They're way too good on paper to.
Their
to
defense has been absolute garbage. Like, by far, probably one of the, if not the worst defense in the NFL. Also, the Lions, I feel like they took
I'm kind of surprised with them. I'm not saying that they're good by any means, but I'm surprised. They're hanging in there. They're around 500. I was expecting them to be similar to what the Jets are doing right now.
Well,
but they're hanging in there.
I think losing Kerryon Johnson was a huge blow.
Yeah. And you know what? The Bills. I'm gonna go to the AFC for a second. The Bills have been a surprising team. Everyone was predicting them to be, horrendous. But they're 6-2 right now. I understand, they beat the Jets, they beat the Dolphins. They have also won against the teams they, aren't supposed to win against.
Yeah.
And they're having a playoff type season, especially when the AFC is as weak as it is right now. The next best team in the running, I'd say, is the Colts, right behind them. But they have that wild card right there, and they're not catching up to the Patriots. I don't believe. 8-1. That's pretty tough to catch up to.
Yeah.
But
you brought up the NFC East as a bad division earlier. I just want to point out something. I think the AFC North might have somehow topped them as the worst division in the NFL. You have
The Bengals are
one team over 500. One out of four.
That team is 6-2. I will say I understand that they have to face weaker competition in the Browns, who are not doing too hot this season, and the Bengals, who are worse than the Jets somehow. But the Ravens, I don't see them as that bad of a team.
I mean, they've been very good. They just beat the Patriots. Lamar Jackson's been going off like.
Yeah. And by the way, he's an unexpected player. He was not, too great last year.
People like.
But you're right. This is an absolutely, weak division. I do see the Steelers, making a comeback here. 3 straight wins. Excuse me. They were just 1-4, and they have won 3 straight. And I understand that they're only at 500, but they're digging themselves out of that hole. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to put themselves on top again. They do have a shot to contend, especially with how bad the AFC has been. They have only the Bills and the Colts in front of them, and they're only a game back of the Colts. They have a shot at making it.
Yeah, and also the Chiefs have been losing a lot recently. I mean, it's not really too surprising considering the fact that Patrick Mahomes is out. But once he comes back, I mean, their division is pretty weak too. So I think easily they'll be the division leader. Maybe they probably won't.
They already have the division by a couple games.
Well, actually, now that I look at it, they have a shot at getting a bye because the team with the most wins in the AFC is the Patriots, and there's no team with 7 wins. There's no other team with 8 wins. There's no team with more than 8 wins. Next is 6, and the Chiefs do have 6 wins.
Yeah. They've played that extra game though, so they're 6-3.
Yeah, the Ravens.
The Ravens are 6-2. So as of right now, they've gotten that bye. And the Texans, you can't count them out. I understand they haven't been phenomenal, and the Colts are right on their tail, but they have a pretty decent squad, and that defense with Watt, carried by Watt, has been pretty good this season. Let's jump into baseball now with the free agency. The Yankees have been, they really need some starting pitching.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They really need to pick up a starting pitcher this offseason. And CC Sabathia, who just retired after the ALCS, has been talking to Garrett Cole, trying to, convince him to play in New York. Garrett Cole, by the way, grew up a Yankee fan and always wanted to play in the pinstripes. And he's a free agent now, and the Yankees are offering him the money. They're offering him a relatively long-term contract, and CC, convincing him they have a lot of odds in their favor. So, Yankees fans, don't be surprised if the Yankees pick up Garrett Cole.
Yeah, I remember I read about that. CC said that if you pay Garrett Cole enough, he'll come. But I mean, the Yankees, they have to fill out quite a few spots. Because they just lost Didi Gregorius. They lost. Yeah. They might lose Cameron Maybin. Brett Gardner is still in negotiations.
I think this offseason, in order to make it successful, if you're not going to pick up any players that are free agents this offseason, that are former Yankees, such as Didi, Gardner, Encarnacion, Maybin, if you're not going to pick up any of them, then you have to pick up Nick Castellanos. And I know that that's a random name, but look at his doubles. 58 last season. 58. You cannot get much better than that. That's outstanding with high 20s home runs and 85 RBIs. And he's not great defensively in the outfield, but he's that perfect number 2 hitter that the Yankees would need. LeMahieu, Castellanos, Judge, Torres, swapping in the 3 and 4 spot. By the way, the Yankees would still have Urshela, and he'll be playing for the entire year this time. And,
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But, barring injury, he'll play for the entire season. And they also have Andujar coming back.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like
him and Urshela will be battling it out.
I feel like this offseason is really big for the Yankees because they definitely need a starting pitcher, as we saw in the postseason.
You know what else, though? Yeah, that is 100% true.
Because now Strasburg and Cole are on the market.
Yeah, and if the Yankees picked up Garrett Cole, not only are they strengthening their roster, but they're weakening the Astros.
Yeah, I brought that up in the last podcast. Same thing if you sign Strasburg. You're weakening the Nats. And Stanton also said it. Yeah.
I don't really see the Nationals repeating. I do see them making the playoffs again, with or without Strasburg, but I don't see them repeating. With that squad, they're far too old in my opinion. Zimmerman was on his last legs; he was just pulling it through for the playoffs. And Scherzer, I believe he still has something in the tank, but he's going to fall off eventually. He wasn't outstanding in the playoffs. He was good, but he wasn't, ace-type stuff. And, Adam Eaton's old. They just have a very, old roster, so I don't see them repeating. I understand that they have Soto and Robles.
Yeah.
But,
maybe they bring back Rendon.
And they also have Rendon on the market. Who knows if he's going to sign back.
Yeah, Strasburg, he still has a decent amount of time left in his career, and Stanton actually said earlier he wants to sign both Garrett Cole and Steven Strasburg.
If they do that, then they're going to the World Series.
Definitely.
Their season pretty much starts in the World
Series. But I don't know if they can afford to pay him all that money, because they still have to consider the rest of the roster.
But if they do get those 2 starting pitchers, the Yankees fans have to know that they're not picking up any big-name position players. Yeah. They might pick up, a couple of guys here and there. Like, they might re-sign Maybin or
Gardner.
Offer Didi, a very cheap contract. They'll go after, cheap players because that's a lot of money to throw at players.
Yeah.
Strasburg and Garrett Cole.
But that would give them the best pitching staff by far in the MLB.
Yeah, then put that on paper, and it would be Garrett Cole number 1, Strasburg number 2, Severino number 3, Tanaka number 4,
Paxton.
Paxton number 5. Actually, he'd be the number 4, and then Tanaka would be the number 5. And then you'd have Hap in there whenever someone's injured. And Domingo Germán, you have to remember.
Or you could trade one of them for a position player.
Exactly. When they throw all this money at starting pitchers and they still have some left over, they can throw away, or they can afford to get rid of a starting pitcher who has some decent value, such as Domingo Germán, who came off of an 19-win season, excuse me. While missing a few games for domestic violence, not that that's, I'm not condoning it. But, that did cut down a little bit of his season.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll be back and better next season.
Hopefully he just doesn't, he did it in front of the commissioner. Not even the office, just in front of the commissioner. Like, you don't get any more, brain dead than that. So hopefully, he put something in that empty head of his. And, if the Yankees pick up those two, they have some real big options for position players through trade, through small contract, and they would be shaping up to be, one of the best teams, not just of the 2020 season, but of the, maybe in history with that bullpen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
for sure. I mean, because I think they still have their whole bullpen intact.
No one's a free agent. They all are locked up.
And Chapman's locked up for another few years.
Yeah, he decided not to opt out. And now I'm going to shift over to the Mets. They are not looking too bad. They do need to make some moves in this offseason if they want to really contend. They just came off of an 86 win season, and that was 3 games out of the wild card, the second wild card. And they do have Pete. They have some pieces there. They have a decent offense. Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Michael Conforto, Wilson Ramos, J.D. Davis. I do believe that they need to add some players to that lineup. It is decent, but not good enough, to get you all the way. I believe that they need to add a third baseman, and I'm sorry, Mets fans, but don't get carried away. They're not getting Anthony Rendon. I don't see it happening. The ownership is just too cheap to pick him up. They offered, Ramos minimal money. I'm surprised that he took it, but that's not going to fly for Anthony Rendon. He wants that big contract, and he deserves it. Came off of a 124 RBI season, which is beyond phenomenal.
And he was amazing in the World Series. Had a lot of clutch hits.
He could play with, he could play defense phenomenally. He could hit. He could run. He could throw. He could do it all. He's a 5-tool player, and and he has those 5 tools, up to the max possible. I just don't see.
He's one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to say to the Mets, I understand that it's not the fans' fault, but their ownership is beyond bad. They are in New York. They are a New York team, and they are unwilling to spend money. When you're in New York or in a big market, you got to throw money out there. Even if it's not always the right decision, you got to give the big name player big money.
Yeah.
And you have to get that big name player in order to be good.
Yeah.
And they don't have a great farm system, so they have nothing waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say they have to get that bullpen. Maybe a touch here and there on the starting pitcher. Who knows if Wheeler's staying or leaving? I don't think that they should re-sign Wheeler. He's going to his age 30 season. He was okay last year. Not phenomenal.
Yeah,
I'd say, they get like someone like Keuchel or Cole Hamels, like a veteran presence in there, and that'll just strengthen their starting pitching staff that much. That gives them an outstanding rotation, and you got to add some arms to that bullpen. I don't believe that Edwin Diaz is going to be as bad. He throws 99 to 100 and has a wipeout slider. I don't see him, being that horrendous again.
and that also brings me to the fact, if the Mets don't re-sign Zach Wheeler, and the Yankees happen not to get Garrett Cole because he decides to sign with a West Coast team like the Angels, Zach Wheeler is still on the table. He's an option for the Yankees.
I can understand people wanting him, but I personally don't believe the Yankees should do that. Even if they, can get him for minimal money, he's just not that good a player. He's going into his age 30 season, so he's not going to last that much longer. And he wasn't that phenomenal to begin with, and he's always injured. So I don't see him as being a great signing for the Yankees right now. I see him being a great signing for a team that just needs that, number 4 and number 5 starter, and the Yankees need number 1 or number 2.
Yeah. So jumping into wrestling, WWE has encountered some huge controversy in their business with Saudi Arabia. The SmackDown superstars were, for the most part, not able to get back in time for Friday Night SmackDown, which led to NXT having to be brought to SmackDown, including guys like Adam Cole, Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair. And apparently, recently, news has come out that WWE is actually deciding to further do business with Saudi Arabia, which is causing even more outrage amongst fans and probably amongst the locker room as well. So, I don't really know what Vince McMahon's thinking because it's kind of ridiculous. There's already so much controversy, and now that he's going to go back. And after all this, stuff with the plane, I don't even know how many of the superstars are actually going to be willing to go back. Some of them are probably just going to be like, you can't pay me enough to go back. So some of them, were really scared. They were asking for prayers on Twitter. They couldn't get their flight out of the country because some people are saying, and Saudi Arabia is claiming it's because the plane broke down, but other people are saying that it's not because of that, but it's actually because Vince McMahon had a financial issue with the prince, I think, and Saudi Arabia decided they weren't going to let the superstars out of there until this issue was resolved. So it's a bad look on Vince. It's a bad look on the company. Hopefully, WWE decides to do something about this going forward, or else their image is really going to have a dark black mark on it. And so basically, when NXT got to the main roster shows, SmackDown and Raw, this past week, it's been building up to Survivor Series, obviously. So now we're going to have lots of matches like Shayna Baszler versus Bayley versus Becky Lynch. That one's already announced, and a whole bunch of other things involving NXT, which I think is really awesome because NXT is probably the hottest brand right now. But there's one thing, and that's we don't know how much longevity this is going to have because currently the ratings are up, the show quality is up for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, and more people are tuning in, obviously, because of it. But the thing is, Survivor Series is coming up soon, so once that is over, we don't know how WWE is going to fare. Their ratings could just totally drop off again, especially for the main roster, because they don't have anything to keep fans' attention anymore, and now that Survivor Series is over and the NXT superstars are gone. So this week, actually, NXT got super close to matching AEW's ratings on Wednesday when there was, Wednesday Night Wars, AEW Dynamite versus WWE NXT. They were both in the 800,000s, which is the closest NXT's gotten, and it's actually kind of scary for AEW, I think. AEW is doing its own thing, but in terms of their dipping ratings and NXT's ratings getting really close, it's frightening for the AEW fan base, I think, as well. So hopefully actually, I mean, hopefully both shows, because as a wrestling fan, you want every single show to thrive. So hopefully both shows' ratings go up, and hopefully both shows can retain their current quality, if not get better at it. AEW on Wednesday Night Dynamite, they start off with Pac versus Trent Beretta, but the ending looked like it was botched due to it seemed like Trent forgetting to kick out, or it was some kind of miscommunication with the ref. Nothing's really sure right now from a fan's perspective, but basically what happened is Pac had the black arrow and the ref stopped at 2, and me as a viewer, I was like, what the hell, what's going on? And eventually, well, actually just seconds later, Pac locked in a submission hold and Trent tapped. So hopefully it won't happen again. We don't. I'm not even sure if the AEW executives know went wrong. Hopefully they do. Hopefully this won't happen again. But I think the fans are going to cut them some slack for this just because they've been treating the fans so well. And when you treat the fans well, they're going to cut you a lot of slack for things like this. And I just have to say, Cody's promo, oh my God. That was definitely the best promo this year, maybe the best promo of the decade. Cody Rhodes cut a scathing promo on Chris Jericho. He started off talking about how he was announcing that if he didn't win against Chris Jericho this Saturday at Full Gear, he is never going to challenge for the AEW World Championship again, which really raises the stakes. But then he also started attacking Chris Jericho, just like Chris Jericho has been attacking Cody personally, as well as his father, Dusty Rhodes. So basically, Cody told him that he didn't even want to read Chris Jericho's book that's selling for like $3 or something, about how Chris Jericho had a rough upbringing, because Cody claims that Chris Jericho, he must have had such a rough upbringing, obviously sarcastically, being the son of a former NHL player for the New York Rangers, and he ended. I don't think anyone's gonna forget this who was watching live, but he said that Chris Jericho and him basically grew up with the same silver spoon in their mouths, and then he went on to call Chris Jericho a stupid dick. And the whole crowd just went wild. But now let's just go back to the announcement for a second, because that announcement, I think it's hinting at some kind of crazy ending. It's not. There's gonna be a winner, and it could. I'm betting. I don't even know. It could be Cody or Jericho, but I'm feeling that somebody's turning. So there's gonna be probably some kind of interference from the inner circle. And I feel like either MJF or Hangman Adam Page is going to turn heel. We know that Hangman Adam Page has been having a little bit of issues with the rest of the Elite, showcased on BTE especially, and MJF, obviously, his heel turn is going to come at some point, and it just feels like a really good time for it to come. But the only, except for the fact that he didn't hint at anything too much this week, and it wasn't like the previous week where he almost, or was it the week before? I'm not exactly sure, where he almost actually attacked Cody. He thought about it. So we'll see what happens. Highly anticipated match, except Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley is actually looking like it's going to main event AEW Full Gear, which is actually really interesting because their match is not even going to count towards their record. Lights out, unsanctioned. Where obviously, well, not obviously, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see the barbed wire broom and the barbed wire bat brought out. And at the end of near the end of the show, Private Party. This was before the segment where Kenny had that little face-off with Jon Moxley, but Private Party defeated the Dark Order to become the #1 contenders to the AEW World Tag Team Championship. So they will be facing SCU for those titles. And at the end of the show, the Elite was brawling with the Inner Circle, which, I don't know, I feel like maybe we're getting like a 5-on-5 match, or maybe Marty Scurll comes in, and I don't know how many members are in the Inner Circle. I know it's Jericho, Guevara, LAX, Jake Hager, and I don't think there's anyone else. But I mean, unless I'm missing somebody, but I feel like Marty Scurll's contract is coming up soon, so if they're building towards this, who knows, man? Maybe the inner circle gets a sixth person, and you're like, who's your sixth person going to be? And that's when Marty Scurll shows up, or maybe they make it even crazier. Maybe they add the whole villain and Enterprise to the Elite to face the inner circle and a few others. We don't know right now, but it's going to be interesting to see how it builds up. As for NXT, the OC showed up to continue that build up to Survivor Series as AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson. They attacked the Undisputed Era before the show, and they opened the show and basically just dissed they didn't really diss NXT, but they said they're coming to start a war and everything. Ciampa shows up, sets up the main event later. In the middle of the show, Mia Yim was declared the fourth member of Rhea Ripley's team, and Dakota Kai was visually upset. So we could be looking at a heel turn for her, which would add some spice to the women's division, especially because she's not as obviously well known as some of the women like Shayna Baszler, Candice LeRae, Rhea Ripley. So this is, I feel like if she does turn heel, it really puts her on the map. Tegan Nox and the other members of both Rhea Ripley's team and Shayna Baszler's team will actually get the spotlight, but Dakota Kai could end up playing a huge role, and that would potentially bring her to new heights. Main event: Tommaso Ciampa, Matt Riddle, Keith Lee versus the OC. Match was pretty solid, but at the end, the Undisputed Era and Finn Balor, FK, Prince Devitt interrupted it, and I mean, we all saw the Prince Devitt gun signs and the AJ Styles Too Sweet. So basically referencing the Bullet Club is really exciting because Bullet Club is probably, if not one of it's definitely one of the most influential factions of all time. Think about it, AEW might not exist without Bullet Club, because Bullet Club was where all these guys came together. So we could be seeing a Bullet Club OGs kind of reunion. Obviously, it's missing guys like Fale and Tama. And I mean, the Young Bucks are technically also OGs. They're the 5th and 6th members of the Bullet Club. But I mean, NXT, if Finn Balor can continue doing this kind of work, and somehow WWE manages to make him work with AJ Styles, Gallows, and Anderson, this could be big for WWE, and especially for NXT if they put them all on NXT in the war, in quotes, against AEW.